Shalom. Welcome to the Fourth Angels Learning Center. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. We are on our Romans chapter study, and we are looking at Romans chapter 5. Just want to remind everybody, if you have not seen the previous chapters, it is very important that you see them, the breakdowns of what Paul is, the ideas that Paul is breaking down or sharing, because it's a letter. It's a letter to the Romans, okay? And the letter to the Romans is there's no chapters, there's no punctuation marks. So sometimes we end an idea at the end of the chapter and we continue to look for another idea in the next chapter, when in actuality they all connect. So it's very important that you read it step by step, especially in this series, because I think that we're going to cover a lot of major important false ideas as well as misinformation, and kind of bring some clarity to what Paul is saying and what Paul is writing to the Romans, especially pertaining to the law and to the prophets. So we're going to be in Romans chapter 5. We're going to go by verses, groups of 7. So let's pull up the scripture right now. I hope that you guys have been praying. I hope you guys have your notes, your pen and pad ready to take some notes. Let's take a look at this. Let's do a different one. All right. We're in Romans chapter 5. We're going to read the first 7 verses. Let's start from verse 1. It says, therefore, even that by itself, this word therefore is a continuation. It means that there's a continuation from a previous chapter. So let's go to Romans chapter 4. Let's go to the end to see kind of what it's concluding, what it's about to transition from, so we can know the context. It says here, it says, now it was not written for his sake alone that it was imputed to him, but for us also, to whom it shall be imputed, if we believe on him that raised up Yahushua, our master, from the dead, who was delivered for our offenses and raised again for our justification, meaning to transfer us, to raise him up, to give us a state of being righteous, to cause us to become in the state of righteousness. So it says that Messiah was delivered for our offenses and raised again for our justification, right? Therefore, being made righteous by faith, we have peace with Elohim through our master Yahushua Messiah, by whom also we have access by faith into this grace wherein we stand, and rejoice in the hope or assurance of the glory of Elohim. And not only so, right? Not only so, but we glory in tribulations also, knowing that tribulations work patience, and patience experience, and experience hope or assurance. This word hope actually means expectation. So it says, and hope or expectation makes not ashamed, because the love of Elohim is shed abroad in our hearts by the set apart spirit which is given to us. For when we were yet without strength, in due time, Messiah died for the ungodly. For scarcely, this is a very important statement right here, for scarcely a man will, for a righteous man will someone die. Perhaps for a good man, some will even dare to die. So let's start from the beginning. I want to make sure everybody understands. Justified by faith means that because of your belief and trust in Yah, Yah has imputed into you righteousness and made you righteous because of your belief and trust in him. Not because of your actions. If you haven't seen chapter 4 Romans study, please go back and look at that first. So he's saying, by this actual faith, you not only are justified or made righteous, but you also receive his grace. The word grace is an emphasis on two things: pardon of your transgression and enablement, meaning your empowerment to stand. There we go. So falling means to transgress Yah's commands. Stand actually means to establish his commands in your heart, to walk according to it. So again, it says here, by faith, you also have access to his pardon and his strength to stand. And you rejoice in assurance of the glory of Elohim. Okay? There's many different examples of this throughout scripture. So Paul is not saying anything new. He's just reiterating the things that have been lost in the minds of the hearers. And he's also giving the nations a new perspective from their pagan, worldly perspectives. So he says, not only so, right? So not only the glory of Yah, we don't only have the expectation of the glory of Yah, but we glory in tribulation also. We glory in tribulation. Now, this word tribulation is an emphasis on trials. I want to show you this correlation, right? Knowing that tribulation works patience. This word patience in the Greek, I need you guys to do the work. I need you guys to do the work and break down these words. Through tribulation, let's say when a trial comes, this word patience means to wait. So when a trial comes, the first thing that you have to begin to exercise is waiting on Yah to give you either answers, to give you a way out, to give you deliverance from whatever tribulation is occurring. Okay, so the first thing that tribulation deals with is waiting on Yah to reveal knowledge, understanding, direction, deliverance, strength, etc., etc. Waiting. So tribulation helps produce your ability to wait on Yah instead of going ahead of him and ending up in a worse situation than you are. And that waiting on Yah builds experience, meaning when you wait on Yah and he finally answers, it's allowing you to be able or be more confident in waiting, be more grounded in waiting for Yah, knowing that he will do what he said he will do, because your experience is that you waited and he answered. You see that? So the tribulation produces waiting. Waiting produces an experience of seeing Yah answer the call. That answer, that experience that you had where Yah is answering the call leads you to this thing that we see here called hope. Now, I definitely want to break this word down because I want you guys to simplify these words. G1680 means expectation or confidence. Expectation or confidence. Okay? So when tribulation comes, it causes you to exercise waiting on Yah. When you wait on Yah, it produces an experience that you have with Yah for waiting. And then in waiting, it produces an expectation or confidence for the next time. The next tribulation that comes in, your confidence increases and your waiting becomes stronger. Your experience becomes greater and your confidence becomes even more stronger. And this cycle is the strengthening of the mind. This is the strengthening of the believer. So it says here, expectation or confidence does not make you ashamed, because the love of Elohim is shed in your hearts by the set apart spirit that was given to us. So the spirit is the one that's developing the believer by faith. So by faith, the spirit is developing the believer. This is what they had to do in the Old Testament. They had to, when tribulations came to him, they had to wait on Yah. This is from scripture. This is from Isaiah. Wait on Yah. This is on Samuel. Not by, Zechariah, not by strength, not by power, but by my word, but by my spirit, right? This is Zechariah 4. So we're seeing the same principles being reiterated here by Paul. When tribulation comes, it's supposed to produce waiting, and that waiting gives you an experience, and that experience gives you an expectation, and then that expectation allows you to wait better, to have a better experience, to become stronger in your expectation, and then it allows you to wait even better in the next test or the next strengthening, right? The love of Elohim, your love towards Elohim, is filling your heart by this ruach. The ruach is being filled inside of a person who's developing through patience, experience, and expectation. Let's continue to look at this. This is all the development of a person who is made righteous, right? Think about this, a person that's not righteous, right? An ungodly person, unrighteous person, when tribulations come, it does not work patience. Let's look at what happens right here. Jeremiah 10. It says here in verse 2, learn not the way of the nations. Be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, and for the nations are dismayed at them, right? The nations are dismayed at them because the customs of the people are vain, right? So the nations are dismayed. Do not learn the way of the nations. We ought not to act hopeless as the nations do when tribulation comes. We ought to have patience. And just to prove what these things are, let's look at it. We ought to have patience. That word patience means endurance, right? Waiting, continuance, endurance, right? Tribulation, patience, waiting develops endurance. Experience, G1382. Trustiness, right? Experience, to trust that of what just happened, of what Yah did. Your experience with Yah, you trust how he manifested himself during these times of tribulation. And of course, hope is confidence and expectation. All right, let's continue to move forward, see what Paul is saying. He's not saying anything different than what Moses tried to strengthen his people in learning. It says, when we were without strength, this is what grace gives us. This is what justification gives us. It gives us strength. When we were in unrighteousness, we were weak. We were without strength when we were in unrighteousness. So it says, while we were without strength, in due time, Messiah died for the ungodly. See, the ungodly don't have strength. They don't have endurance. They don't have experience to trust in Yah, and they don't have expectations or confidence in any hope or any I would say any salvation or any deliverance or any freedom or anything like that. There's a hopelessness, which is why many TV shows, many movies, there's this constant emphasis on follow yourself, your own, encourage yourself, other people, believing in other people. I believe in you. I believe you can do it. And it's like, putting your trust in man. And this is where we come to this very important statement. Scarcely for a righteous man, is very, very, very few that somebody would die for a righteous man, and peradventure a good man would some even dare to die. So there are people who would die for others. It says here, for a good man would people even dare to die. So it just keeps reminding me of people that go to war. There's many people who go to war for very righteous perspectives, protection of their children, protection of their families, protection of other people, protection of the nation to be safe. These perspectives is very honorable. But then they have the other spectrum where people are over patriotic. They're brainwashed to kind of put themselves in the line for an imaginary cause. So it's very important. It's very scarce that people are willing to give their life up for other people, even though other people are righteous. But Elohim commended his love toward us, that while we were yet sinners, Messiah died. Messiah died for us. Much more than being now made righteous by his blood, we shall be saved or delivered from the wrath through him. For if when we were enemies, we were reconciled to Elohim by the death of his son, much more after being reconciled, we shall be delivered by his life. We're going to touch on that in a second. Not only so, but we also joy in Elohim through our master Yahushua Messiah, by whom we have now received the reconciliation or the atonement. Wherefore, by one man's sin entered into the world, and death by sin, so death passed upon all men, that all have sinned. For until the law, sin was in the world, but sin is not imputed where there's no knowledge of law. Right? Nevertheless, death reigned from Adam to Moses, even over them that had not sinned after the similitude of Adam's transgression, who is the figure of him that was to come. We're going to touch on all of these statements in a second. All right, let's start from verse 8. Elohim commended his love towards us in that while we were yet sinners, Messiah died. This is just a very general, established, fundamental perspective. We were sinners. He commended his love towards us in this way, so that way we're not looking at any aspect of us obeying and then any aspect of us being a participant in getting ourselves out of sin, out of condemnation. His love was commended towards us while we were sinners. Messiah died. And then it says, being now made righteous by his blood, that we shall be saved from the wrath to come. And this brings us back to the understanding of Passover. Let me break that down a little bit. Passover is that the blood of the lamb was supposed to be on the doorposts. Now, when the blood of the lamb was on the doorposts, it wasn't that Yah was going to pass over Israel anyway. Absolutely not. That the wrath of Yah, the destroyer, was going to come and destroy the Israelites also if they did not have the blood on their doorposts. You understand? So because the blood was on the doorposts, in Exodus chapter 12, Yah said that when the destroyer comes and sees the blood on the doorposts, that he will pass over your house and pour the plague on Egypt. So it's the similar language. The Passover language is the similar language as we see in being made right and being delivered from the wrath of Yah. The wrath of Yah is coming either way, and Yah has given us a way out of the way. He's given us something that we can receive to push us beside him rather than in front of him. If we're in front of him, he's going to have to go through us. If we're beside him, we are delivered from the wrath that's inevitable. The wrath is inevitable. He has to address transgression. He has to address wickedness and ungodliness. So this is a very important perspective, and it brings us back to the understanding of Passover as well. Now that we are justified, we're made right by his blood, we shall be saved from the wrath through him. This is just like what happened in Exodus chapter 12. When we were enemies, this is a little bit more intensified of a description for what type of people we were before we were with him. This is the type of people that we were living in this life, living in this world, the way that we treated other people, the things that we had in our hearts and minds towards other people, the way that we acted, the way that we treated, the way that we moved because of money, because of whatever. We moved as enemies towards Yah. We moved as enemies contrary to everything that he was about, everything that he taught. But now we are reconciled or brought together to Elohim by the death of his son. And then it says, much more being reconciled, it says here, we shall be saved by his life. This is something very important. Many people constantly emphasize on the death of the Son. The death, the death, the death, the death. The death simply made you right. The death simply made you reconcile. But there's more that we need to be appreciative of. There's more that we need to cling to in regards to this whole thing that we call the good news. So not only did his death make us right? His death was the deposit. It made our account good, right? Let's say we had a debt with a bank. Let's say we were indebted $1 million. His death literally paid it $1 million. His death brought us to zero. It took the debt away, but it still left us on zero. His life right here, where it says we shall be saved by his life is like depositing $1 million. So not only did his death make us right with the bank, which is eliminate the death, the life, his spirit, his life deposits in us an unlimited bank account, so to speak. So this is how we need to approach the good news. By faith, our debt is being clean and we are being made right and reconciled with Yah. When we are made reconciled with Yah, we receive the gift of the Ruach, the set apart spirit, the life of Messiah. And that life enables us to walk and live and think and be in righteousness now. It's a deposit. So it says, and not only so, but we also joy in Elohim through our master Yahushua, by whom we have now received atonement or reconciliation. Let's get to this part. So now we're made sinners. By one man, where man's sin entered into the world. This is very important because this is some clarity. There's so many people right now who's having these weird perspectives, like that there was a different, I would say, some people say there was more people, that there was other nations on this earth. I'm just like, if there were other nations sinning on this earth, it says by one man sin entered into the world. One man, by one man sin entered into the world. Stop this nonsense about there being other nations, about there being other men sinning on this world, other nations sinning, right? By one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin. So death passed upon all men because of this one man. For that all have sinned. For until the law was, sin was in the world, but sin is not imputed where there's no law or no knowledge of law. If there's no knowledge of law, there is law. There is a law. Law is when Yah gives the command. Whenever Yah gives the instruction, that's the law. So there was law. There was education on this earth. When education comes, then there is knowledge. When there is knowledge, then there's sin. Or I would say guilt or condemnation for sin. So it says, nevertheless, reigned Adam to Moses. So again, I would just want to show knowledge of the law or instruction always came to people. It just wasn't an established perspective all throughout the world until the law was given to Moses. Then there was a standard that was constant, right? If we go to Genesis 26:5, you'll see Abraham obeyed Yah's voice, kept his charge, his commandments, statutes, and his laws. So let's look at this perspective. Death reigned from Adam to Moses, even over them that had not sinned after the similitude of Adam's transgression. Even through people who did not sin the way Adam sinned, who is the figure of him that was to come. Interesting thing, Adam was the figure of him that was to come. This is, I'm pretty sure you guys understand that this him that was to come is referring to Messiah. Adam was referred to as the son of Yah. We could see that in Luke chapter 3, verse 38. It says this, which was the son of Enos, which was the son of Seth, which was the son of Adam, which was the son of Elohim. Right? Adam was the son of Elohim. So it's interesting how Paul is acknowledging that his dominion, his appearance, he was in the likeness and image of Yah, the way that his son was, and that he is the figure of him that was to come. But back to the law. When there's no knowledge of law, there cannot be a condemnation in a righteous manner. Let me bring an example. If I don't instruct my children, and I don't correct my children, and if I don't show my children how to do it first, right? So I give my children an example, then I instruct my children, then I show my children mercy for breaking my instruction and give them chances, right? When punishment comes, it is not because of ignorance. It is because of rebellion, right? So this is the same thing that happens. When Yah is approaching the nations, approaching the world, he's not approaching the world with like an unjust, well, I'm just going to punish you because you're evil, even though I'm not telling you that you're evil, even though I'm not trying to correct your evilness, I'm just going to punish you because you're evil. No, this is not the way that Yah does things. You know, there's always instruction, there's always information, there's always knowledge that Yah gives to the world first. When Noah was told this, right? And let me see if you guys can grasp this. In Genesis chapter 6, Yah gave the world, let me see if I can find it. He gave the world a certain time. He gave the world right here, according to verse 3, 120 years. Now, the first thing is, do you think that it took him 130 years to build the ark? Absolutely not. It absolutely did not take him 130 years. Let's say it took him 30 years. Let's say it took him 50 years. He still had a lot of years left. What was he to do? What was he to do those years? Let me show you what Peter calls him. Let me see if I can find it. So 2 Peter chapter 2, look what it says. It says that Yah did not spare the old world, but he saved Noah, the eighth, and then it referred to Noah as a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the ungodly. He was a preacher of righteousness. That means that Noah was preaching for 120 years the righteousness of Yah. What's the consistent perspective of Yah? That Yah gives you correction. He rebukes you in order to change the initial punishment. So the punishment is coming, or the warning of the punishment is coming, and righteousness is the only way to deter away from that punishment. Noah was a righteous preacher. He was a preacher of righteousness. So when we get back here, and it talks about the law not being on the earth, it definitely was not on the earth as an established set of instructions as it was from Mount Sinai. But it does not mean that Yah did not send people to give knowledge of sin to the people of the earth. And because of the, I would say, scarcity of this knowledge, death reigned from Adam to Moses. When Moses came and Israel was going through the wilderness and dealing with all those wars and the law and all these things, all the nations kept hearing about Israel. All the nations. It was like a flood of information spreading throughout the whole world about Israel, about Yah. So I could understand the difference between the days of Noah or the days of Abraham from the days of Moses. It was definitely different as far as the magnitude of knowledge that was spread. Let's continue to look at this. Let's start at verse 15. Romans 15, all the way down. It says, but not as the offense, right? Let's look at verse 14 just so we can stay in context. So it says, death reigned from Adam to Moses, even over them that had not sinned after the similitude of Adam's transgression, but not as the offense, so also is the free gift. So the free gift is not like how the offense is. The offense is because of your actions. The free gift is not like, it's not dealing with your actions. For if through the offense of one man many are dead, much more the grace of Elohim, and by the gift of grace, which is by one man, Yahushua Messiah, hath abound unto many. And I like that he said many, because it's only for those who accept. It's not just given to everyone like how death was. Death was given to all, but righteousness was offered. Grace was offered. So it says in verse 16, not as it was by one that sinned, so is the gift. For the judgment was by one to condemnation, but the free gift is of many offenses unto righteousness. For if by one man's offense death reigned by one, much more they which receive abundance of grace and of the gift of righteousness shall reign in life by one, Yahushua Messiah. Therefore, we're going to go back and look at these. Therefore, as the offense of one, judgment came upon all men to condemnation, even so by the righteousness of one, the free gift came upon all men unto the justification of life. For as by one man's disobedience many were made sinners, so by the obedience of one shall many be made righteous. Moreover, the law entered that the offense might abound, right? So the offense is already there. So the law was established on this earth so that the offense might be seen very clearly or abound. But where sin abounds, grace did abound much more. That as sin have reigned unto death, even so might grace reign through righteousness unto eternal life by Yahushua Messiah, our master. All right, let's break this down. So the offense is not like the gift. The gift is because of faith. The offense is because of disobedience, is because of the actions. Death came in because of one man's actions, and everybody that was born with the propensity to act in this same manner. So let's say sin, transgression, just so we could simplify the word offense. So for the judgment was by one to condemnation. This is the judgment, condemnation to everybody that sins or transgresses. But the free gift is as many offenses unto justification, is of many offenses. So the free gift covers many transgressions for righteousness. For if by one man's transgression death reigned by one person, much more they which received an abundance of grace, which is a pardon of your transgression, and of the gift of righteousness, which is the imputing of righteousness that we were reading about, shall reign in life, the Ruach, by one, Yahushua Messiah. And it's a repetition, so that way it can solidify in your mind what's going on. Therefore, by one transgression, by the transgression of one, upon all men, condemnation, even so by the righteousness of one, upon all men, justification of life, or righteousness, or establishment of a righteous life. For by one man's disobedience, many were made sinners, so by the obedience of one, many were made righteous. So, of course, it's a statement, but there's so many things involved in a statement, such as deliverance, enablement, grace, pardon of your transgression, the receiving of the Spirit, the imputation of righteousness, the ability for you to actually keep Yah's commandments and laws and statutes. All of these things come with the reception of Messiah's life. So it says, moreover, the law entered that the transgression might abound, so it can be known. It needs to be known. And we're going to look at the next couple chapters. We're going to see how the law is revealing the law of sin. And this is what we see in Romans 3 as well, where it says the law is the knowledge of sin. So it's very important that we understand this. And this is why the law is so important in the deliverance of the gospel to the nations, because the law also reveals the knowledge of sin to cause the offense or transgression to abound. But where sin abound, grace did abound much more, that as sin have reigned unto death, even so might grace reign through righteousness unto eternal life by Yahushua Messiah, our master. So just as death and disobedience is producing something, Yahushua's righteousness and spirit and obedience is also producing something in us. Now, again, this is still not talking about us performing any acts, us doing anything to redeem ourselves. It's still talking about something that is cleansing, something that is being a gift to us. Now, we cannot obtain that gift while ungodly. We have to obtain this gift while being cleansed, while being pardoned, while being forgiven. And as we are forgiven, we are receiving righteousness, as we read it about in chapter 4. We read about this in the last video in chapter 4 as well, about the imputing of righteousness, that it comes by belief, it comes by faith and trust in Yah, and he accounts it to us. He removes iniquity and exchanges. He takes the iniquity and gives you righteousness, because in giving his spirit, it encompasses everything: the life of Messiah, righteousness, the righteous state of being, the enablement, strength to obey and walk in righteousness. All of these things is given simultaneously. Just like when we are sinners, we exchanged what Adam did was he exchanged the righteous likeness of Yah and took upon himself the wicked perspective and image of the enemy. This was an exchange, and it was a direct consequence. It wasn't a curse, it's a consequence of our actions, that every other person was now in sin. If I am an alcoholic and my wife is an alcoholic, and then we have a child, that child can be poisoned by the alcohol that we take in, not because that child did something of their own accord, but because it's a consequence of what we have done. If we take drugs and we have a child, the child could come out addicted to drugs, not because of that child's actions, but because of the effect that we had on the child's body while our bodies were connected. You see what I'm saying? So this is how sin reigned unto death. Sin was produced because man sinned and developed the mind and heart of the enemy, removing himself from his initial created state. His initial created state was that he was in the likeness and image of Yah, and now he was in the likeness and image of the enemy. And now he needed to be redeemed back into the likeness and image of Yah. But there's a consequence, and that consequence is what we're living through today. And that consequence, praise Yah, is why he gave us the law, to show the reality of what's developing, of what's producing that consequence. It's sin. Sin is producing not only the curse, but the consequences of all that you see today. And he is allowing that law to be here so that way sin can abound, so grace can abound much more. You see? So when people are doing away with the law, they don't understand what they're doing away with. Now, because they've done away with the law, everybody's calling each other good. People are calling people in the world good people, or children of, everybody is children of Yah. They're blurring the lines. They're blurring the lines between ungodly and godly, unrighteous and righteous. They're blurring the lines that Yah's law actually clears up and allows it to be very clear or abound. So in order for us to deliver like an accurate perspective of the gospel, you have to deliver the law properly. So that way the sin can be understood, death can be understood, so that way life can be cherished. The life of Messiah can be cherished in the walk of the believer. So I hope that this was a clear perspective. And if there's any questions, please feel free to give us a contact especially before the next study. So that way we can make a video before that time. So I hope that you enjoyed Romans chapter 5. I'll see you in the next study. Shalom, everyone.